Good morning. Commissioner Holden is hit some traffic, and we're going to get started with some preliminary stuff, and hopefully she'll be able to come in. If not, we'll suspend the meeting until she gets here. But I think it's important for us to get started. So if you would join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public notice statement, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Commissioners. Adequate public notice has been given pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been posted at the Board's office and website, and emailed to the Department of State and to newspapers of broad circulation within the state.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Holden. She's not here, sorry. Commissioner Solomon.
Here.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner Christy DeLue.
Here.
President Ferlisa.
Present. And our next regularly scheduled meeting?
The next regular board meeting will be on Wednesday, September 7, 2022 at 10 a.m. It will be a hybrid meeting in person at the board's hearing room at 44 South Clinton Avenue in Trenton and live streamed via YouTube.
Thank you. And again, I invite those folks who are viewing us via stream, please feel free to come and see our new boardroom and see us in person. It may be repulsive to some, but we're, that was a joke. We're really very nice looking. But really, we'd like to believe we're getting more and more back to normal after the scare of the pandemic, which is obviously still around to some degree. But you might notice that there is this strange man at the end of the dais, and I sent something out welcoming him, and this is his first official meeting. He actually started on Monday of this week, and Commissioner Christo DeLue is, I had to say it very slowly, otherwise I was going to screw it up, because
It's
it's
harder
not as,
than Fiordelli.
it's not as easy as Fiordaliso. So, and so on. So, along with the announcement that I sent out, I sent out a press release that the board issued and really gave I think a comprehensive background as to the commissioner's activities and achievements over the years. And it certainly is an impressive resume, really, on the things that he has done and continues to do. We're thrilled to have him. It's always good to infuse new blood into the board, and someday you may have that opportunity with me, and so on. So I'd like to really give him an opportunity to say hello and add anything that you would like, Zenon, and we're all happy that you're here.
Thank you very much, President Fiordaliso, fellow commissioners, and friends and guests. I greatly appreciate you giving me this opportunity to introduce myself today. It's a great honor to be with this august group of leaders and expert staff here at the BPU. I know we have some very noble goals to achieve, and I'm looking greatly forward to being part of that solution and working with everybody here with our heart and soul to make New Jersey a leader in energy and regulating all our utilities on behalf of the ratepayers and the future goals of our governor and the state of New Jersey. So with that, I just want to say thank you. As the president mentioned, I've only been here for a few days, a combined grand total of maybe 16 hours. So I haven't solved all the problems yet. I anticipate by midweek next week, I should have everything solved for you. But in that regard, for today's meeting, since I've only had the agenda for a few hours, literally, I feel compelled to not vote on anything today. I'd be disingenuous to make a vote. I haven't had a chance really to discuss with people, so I apologize for that, but I assure you by next meeting I will be up to speed and be willing to make the right votes at the right time. So with that, I thank you. It's great to be here in Trenton, and I look forward to the future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, and welcome. And it's, I know all the division directors will be scheduling meetings with you to just give you a high-level idea of what their divisions do. And I think you're going to be very impressed with the caliber of our staff. It is. I always say, and we always say, that we have the best staff in state government here at the BPU, and they really are. Would you like to say anything, Commissioner?
Yes. First of all, welcome. It's wonderful to have you. Look forward to working with you, and you helped me with the pronunciation of your name, so I'm well on the road to working together. And I've offered to provide our new commissioner with an acronym list, which should help him in his journey in moving forward here at the board. So welcome today. I also have an announcement, as long as I have the microphone, for a few minutes. My current aide, Stephanie Forrest, has moved on. She took a job with South Jersey Industries, actually Elizabethtown Gas. You know, a lot of times our aides are in positions and move on to other opportunities, so I was glad to see that she was able to do that. In the interim, Earl Pierce, who many of you may know, who works in the Division of Clean Energy, is going to be helping me out. So should you not be able to get a hold of Anissa or need to speak with someone, you can reach out to Earl, and he will make sure that the information gets to me, and he will be providing that service in the interim.
Bob, would you like to say something?
I do indeed. I want to extend a heartfelt welcome to my friend Zinon. That's the easier way of communicating.
Absolutely.
I could say Kalamata.
Thank you.
And I know that the insights and background that he brings from his business experience will make a great contribution to the board, and I'm truly looking forward to working with him. I would also like to just say a word about our friend Commissioner Chibakula, who left the board last week. Pendra and I have known each other for, I think, over 20 years. He served this state selflessly and with great dedication for more than 2 decades. We first met when I joined the General Assembly in 2004. He was also an assemblyman. We started working on projects together. I have fond memories of an ill-fated effort we made together to try to upgrade information technology of the state, trying to get the state from the sort of mainframe era. He and I became very good friends. He invited my Gail and me to family events, and so it was a joy for me. One of the additional pleasures of coming over to the Board of Public Utilities was to reconnect with him. I found that he brought great expertise, the perspective of an engineer, background in telecommunications that was very valuable, and he just made a great contribution to this organization. I want to just wish him well in his future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and we were going to do something at a later date to honor him, and we will be inviting him back to present him with a resolution to thank him for his years of service, not only as a commissioner, but as an elected official. And it is not an easy task to put oneself out there in the public eye, particularly as an elected official. You're getting arrows from every direction, literally, and it takes I don't know if it's courage or stupidity to run for office, but it's not an easy venture to encounter, I assure you, having done it, and many times if you do it and you win, and you say, okay, now what do I do? And we have folks up here who have run and who have won. So Upendra contributed a great deal to this agency. He always would dive into the weeds and loved the weeds of various topics that we would explore. And I know whatever he does beyond here, he will be successful, because I don't think he's going to retire. He's much too young to do so. Well, anybody younger than me is much too young, right? So it's with a heavy heart that we say goodbye to him. But it's not goodbye, it'll be, we'll see you soon, and we will. So, please let the record show that Commissioner Holden has arrived. She tried to escape this entire meeting.
It's noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything, Commissioner?
I'm sure I'm just going to pile on to all the accolades. It's really been fun working with Kendra, or as I call him, Oopie. And when his wife heard me say that, she goes, "Why do you call him that?" I said, "Well, it's easier than Upendra." She goes, "That's what I started calling him when we first were dating." So he'll always be Oopie. But I also congratulate him on recently getting his doctorate, and as President Fiordaliso has said, Upendra's not one to rest on his laurels. During COVID, he was bored, so he decided to work on his PhD, which he just received. And so that's very exciting for him. And I always call him the doctor anyway, because he always had some cure for something that's wrong, or a yoga position you should try, and I'm going to miss that.
Right, but none of his suggestions were medically proven.
It was funny
Run for the
because
Senate in Pennsylvania.
actually, one of them was, I pulled up lame after jogging out in San Diego. I know I shouldn't jog more than my memory, but I could not walk. He goes, "Would you mind if I come to your room? I have this Zandu bomb." It's okay. He said, "Would you mind if I applied it?" Well, the pressure, the pain was so incredible. And I'm like screaming, I'm like, one of the people next door, I think, is going on, and Upendra's laughing hysterically. So you could just imagine what the scene looked like, or sounded like. So anyway, after that, I came home and I went to my chiropractor. Do you know they use the exact same treatment that Upendra had used? So there is some that has been proven.
And most of them worked. Yeah, I have to say. Suggestions, they did work.
All right, let's get back to the regular agenda. Since you have arrived, we're trying to move along because some have obligations. So, there will be an executive session today. The board will be addressing the following item in executive session. In telco, in the matter of broadband access study commission. And the board will take action on this item during regular session. Executive session shouldn't last more than 10 minutes. Michael, would you read the reason we're going into executive session?
Yes, good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. For Commissioner Christodoulou, and for the record, my name is Deputy Attorney General Michael Beck. As the President just announced, item 4A on today's agenda falls within the contract negotiation exception to the Open Public Meetings Act. This exception is found in New Jersey Statute 10:4-12B7.
Thank you. May I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone who is not a member of the Board of Public Utilities, I would respectfully ask you to leave. Before we get started, just a couple of things. There have been some last-minute changes made to today's agenda. The clean energy item regarding energy and water benchmarking has been deferred to our next board agenda meeting in September. Additionally, the clean energy executive session item regarding the school and small business program memorandum of understanding has also been deferred to the next board meeting. In addition to our new commissioner, we also have some new staff members. And it seems like every meeting, thank goodness, we're hiring and trying to fill the necessary positions. And it's been a constant, really ever since I became the president. We have been hiring and hiring and hiring and never seem to catch up for some reason. And the reason basically is very simple. People retire, so there will be no more retirements from this point on. Or people find other positions that they find more attractive. So it's kind of a revolving door, but we're certainly happy with the people that have been hired, not only the new ones today that I'm going to introduce, but previous hires. And because they have filled the roles in an expert way. And that's what keeps the BPU chugging along. We have Judith Augustin, a budget analyst, Division of Clean Energy. Is she here? There she is. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell us something about yourself? About yourself? That doesn't sound good.
I'm working with Matt Rossi at the Energy Division. It's going great. The people are very helpful. Matt is very helpful as well. So I like it.
Good. Well, we're happy to have you here and wish you all the luck in the world and a long tenure with us. There's also Tiffany Davis, Agency Service Representative, Trainee, Division of Customer Assistance. You must be Tiffany.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yes. I work with the customer assistance. My director is Julie Ford. I'm liking it so far. Everyone's been very extremely helpful. And I feel this is an organization that will help me to thrive in the future. So I plan on staying here for a very long time.
Well, I Good for you. We hope you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome again.
Thank you.
Sadia Chaudhary? Am I?
Hi,
Hi, you're a climate fellow,
I'm a Eagleton fellow from Rutgers.
right? Anything you want to tell us about yourself?
I'm very happy to be here. It's my 5th week here. A little bit about my background. I have training in organic chemistry. I did materials research for applications in solar cells, transistors, and batteries. And I'm an Eagleton fellow here, hosted by Rutgers University. And I'm excited to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rupa, I don't know the last name here. Thesmukh?
Deshmukh.
Say it again?
Deshmukh.
Okay, if you say so.
Yes, hello everybody, good morning. I'm Rupa Deshmukh. I joined about a month ago as the energy efficiency manager, working with Stacy and our wonderful team. So a bit about my background. I'm an engineer. I also have a degree in environment economics and policy. So I'm really looking forward to the exciting work in the energy efficiency space that we are doing here. Previously I was at the DEP, working in the climate change section there, so I'm happy to bring some of my experience there up here as well. So really look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
And we look forward to working with you too. Welcome. James Creech, am I pronouncing that right? Legal specialist? Is James here? I don't see.
he's locked in his office working on September 7th agenda.
Do you lock a lot of people up when they leave?
Otherwise he retired.
Otherwise they leave, right? We have Margaret Murphy, Administrative Analyst in Procurement for Budget and Finance. Margaret? She's procuring, I guess. No? She's not here today? Okay. Well, Zena, obviously you see, when you're not too bright, you hire smart people. And we sure have. And they are a wonderful group with great credentials. And will represent the Board of Public Utilities in the most positive way. We're happy to have all of you here, and I know I speak for my colleagues, our doors are always open to you, and we're here to work as a family, as a team, and if one of us looks good, we all look good. So it's not about an individual, it's about a team. And that's what we've tried to cultivate over the years. So, welcome, good luck, and I hope you have a long, worthwhile experience here at the Board of Public Utilities. I also want to wish my former aide, Sam Kaplan, the very best of luck. Somehow he unlocked the door and left, and who served 3 years with me as my aide, and he went on to bigger and better things. Finally, I would like to acknowledge August as National Water Quality Month. And the state of New Jersey has been in a drought. I think parts of the state have gotten less than a half an inch of rain since July, and that's not good. All you have to do is look at your grass and see that.
Flowers.
And the poor flowers, yeah, and so on. So, but water, of course, is our most essential utility. It's the only one we can't live without. No offense to everybody else, but I could go without electricity for a period of time. But
At some point he won't get any water.
or television, or whatever. But water is essential, and it's something that we have to protect. We saw what happened in the city of Newark with that major water main break, and so on, and the chaos that it creates. So I want to thank Mike and his division for ensuring New Jersey residents have access to safe, reliable water this month and every month. Do any of my colleagues have any comments they'd like to make? Yes.
Just want to add on, if only Newark had taken advantage of our acoustical testing program, that could have been avoided. That's a 42-inch main is a transmission main, that's not just distribution, that is huge. And you consider that recently we had a case with Middlesex Water, and they had added another transmission, and now it's 36 inches, so this is even larger. So it's a shame that the technology was not put in place. It would have predicted the a possible break.
A very good point, and I'd also like to publicly commend our electric distribution companies. We've had an exceptionally hot summer, and the system endured. The number of upgrades in the infrastructure has been worth the money invested. We have not had any serious blackouts. There was one in JCP&L territory, but it was the result of a dump truck, I believe, or two dump trucks hitting transmission lines. So it wasn't the system that failed, it was drivers of dump trucks that failed. So very, very pleased with the performance of our utilities, all four public electric utilities, and for their service. And of course, our gas utilities are always on the front line and doing an outstanding job. Anyone else have any comments? If not, Madam Secretary, the consent agenda.
On consent agenda items 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D, 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D, and 6A.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Ferguliso.
Yes. That brings us to our regular agenda, and it's more lengthy than some of our previous agendas, so we're going to try to get through it as expeditiously as possible. So if you could keep your comments specific and to the point, it would be appreciated. There are no items under audits to be considered. That brings us to energy, and Mr. Lupo, you're up.
Morning.
Good morning. And 2A, JCP&L?
Sure. On October 1st, 2021, Jersey Central Power and Light Company filed a petition seeking review and approval of the actual costs and expenditures incurred related to environmental remediation of its former manufactured gas plant sites for calendar year 2020. The recoverable remediation expenses for 2020 totaled approximately $12.364 million, while combined with the 2019 ending over recovered deferred balance, the net remediation cost decreased to $10.072 million. The 2020 net expenses and the remaining amortization of prior RAC expenditures previously approved for recovery would result in an increase to JCP&L's rider RAC revenues of approximately $1.957 million annually. Sorry. The parties have executed a stipulation to resolve this matter. As a result of the stipulation, a typical residential customer will see an increase in their monthly bill of 8 cents. Staff recommends that the board issue an order adopting the stipulation and directing JCP&L to file revised tariffs by August 31st.
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments for Paul? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Ferguliso.
Yes. And 2B, PSE&G, Paul?
On January 25th, 2022, Parkway Generation filed a petition seeking approval to eliminate the basic gas supply service asset charge of rate schedule CSG for its facilities pursuant to the CSG agreement between PSE&G and PSEG Power. On February 18th, 2022, Parkway acquired the facilities from PSEG Power, and as a result, the BGSS assets are no longer used to supply or deliver natural gas to the facilities. Parkway explicitly stated that it will never use the BGSS assets to supply or deliver natural gas to the facilities. The CSG agreement approved by the board in May of 2013 contains a mechanism that the parties can modify or eliminate the BGSS asset charge. On June 30th, 2022, Rate Council filed comments requesting that the board not approve the elimination of the BGSS asset charge, stating that Parkway can take the necessary steps to eliminate the charge without board approval. Parkway filed reply comments requesting the charge be eliminated as expeditiously as possible, and that Rate Council's interpretation of the agreement was incorrect. Following a review of the petition and comments, staff recommends that the board approve the petition and the elimination of the BGSS asset charge effective October 1st, 2022. Staff further recommends the board deny Rate Council's request to make the elimination of the BGSS asset charge effective no sooner than October 30th, 2022.
So moved. Second?
Questions, comments for Paul? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Ferdeliso.
Yes. 2C involves FERC, PJM, transmission rates.
Correct. On June 24th, 2022, the 4 electric distribution companies filed a joint petition requesting recovery of FERC-approved charges, infirm transmission service related charges, and related charges to several FERC filings. The EDCs requested that the changes in rates be effective for service rendered on and after September 1, 2022. Based upon the allocation of the techs and NITs costs for the EDCs and the respective allocation among each EDC's customer service classes, the monthly bill for a residential customer using 650 kilowatt hours per month will change by approximately the following amounts: an increase of $4.34 for ACE, an increase of 1 cent for JCP&L, an increase of 5 cents for PSE&G, and an increase of 6 cents for Rockland. Staff recommends the board approve the modifications to the BGS RSCP and BGS CIEP rates consistent with the petition effective September 1, 2022. Staff further recommends that the EDCs be directed to file revised tariffs by September 1, 2022.
So moved. Second?
Questions, comments for Paul? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Ferdeliso.
Yes. 2D, E-Town Gas.
On March 29, 2021, Elizabethtown Gas Company filed a petition to increase operating revenues by approximately $76.62 million, excluding sales and use tax, implement certain rate and tariff revisions, roll into base rates, infrastructure investment program costs, and establish various regulatory assets. The company also requested a return on equity of 10.75%. The 2022 rate case matter was transmitted to the OAL and assigned to ALJ Morjan for consideration and hearing. Throughout the course of the proceeding, Elizabethtown updated the rate case petition to include 12 months of actual data with an updated revenue requirement of approximately $77.3 million, excluding sales and use tax. The parties have executed a stipulation, which was subsequently approved by the ALJ. Key components of the stipulation include a revenue requirement of approximately $40 million, excluding taxes, a return on equity of 9.6%, a monthly residential customer charge of $10.50, including taxes, a weighted average cost of capital of 6.85%, an equity to debt ratio of 52% to 48%, and approval to create a regulatory asset for the transmission integrity management program. As a result of the stipulation, and if approved by the board, a typical residential customer would experience a monthly increase of $10.38. Staff recommends the board adopt the initial decision, approve the stipulation for service rendered on and after September 1, 2022, and direct Elizabethtown to file revised tariffs by August 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? When was their last rate case, Paul?
2019.
Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferguson?
Yes. 2E, Rockland Electric.
On June 1st, Rockland Electric Company filed a petition seeking approval of establishing a cost recovery mechanism to recover future costs associated with implementing the Community Solar Energy Pilot Program, and proposed to recover the revenue requirements associated with the pilot program as a new component of its RGGI surcharge tariff. In the petition, Rockland sought approval to set an initial rate of 0 cents per kilowatt hour as there are no costs incurred to date. The parties have executed a stipulation recommending establishing and incorporating a pilot program rate as a component of the RGGI surcharge tariff and setting the initial rate to 0 cents per kilowatt hour. As a result of the stipulation, there is no bill impact at this time. Staff recommends that the board issue an order approving the stipulation and directing Rockland to file revised tariffs by August 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferguson?
Yes. 2F, Atlantic City Electric.
On June 1st, Atlantic City Electric filed a petition seeking approval of establishing a cost recovery mechanism to recover future costs associated with implementing the Community Solar Energy Pilot Program, and proposed to recover the revenue requirements associated with the pilot program as a new component of its rider RGGI tariff. In the petition, ACE sought approval to set an initial rate of 0 cents per kilowatt hour as there are no costs incurred to date. Parties have executed a stipulation recommending establishing and incorporating a pilot program rate as a component of the rider RGGI tariff and setting the initial rate to 0 cents per kilowatt hour. As a result of the stipulation, there is no bill impact at this time. Staff recommends that the board issue an order approving the stipulation and directing ACE to file revised tariffs by August 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferguson?
Yes. 2G, another ACE matter.
Sure. On April 27, 2021, the board approved ACE's Energy Efficiency Program for a 3-year period from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2024, with a total investment not to exceed approximately $96 million. The board also approved the implementation of a cost recovery mechanism, the EE surcharge, which would be a component of the company's rider RGGI tariff to recover the costs associated with the EE program. On February 28, 2022, ACE filed a petition requesting approval for cost recovery associated with year 2 of the EE program and to true up costs incurred from year 1 of the EE program. ACE proposed to recover a revenue requirement of approximately $6.7 million by increasing the EE surcharge per kilowatt hour. The parties have executed a stipulation requesting the board approve the new EE surcharge rate. As a result of the stipulation, a typical residential customer using 680 kilowatt hours per month will see an increase of 29 cents. Staff recommends the board issue an order approving the stipulation and directing ACE to file revised tariffs by August 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Ferguson.
Yes, and then finally, H, Paul, regarding zero emission certificate program for eligible nuclear power plants or ZECs.
Sure. On May 28, 2018, Governor Murphy signed a law requiring the board to create a program and mechanism for the issuance of zero-emission certificates. On August 29, 2018, the board initiated the ZEC program. On November 19, 2018, the board approved the form of ZEC applications, the program process, and tariffs for the collection of funds. On April 18, 2019, the board determined that Salem 1, Salem 2, and Hope Creek were eligible for the program and should receive ZECs. ZECs were awarded for the stub period, April 18, 2019 through May 31st, 2019, and energy years 2020, 2021, and 2022. On July 10, 2019, the board approved staff's recommendation for the forward steps to implement the program. One forward requirement is the board's responsibility to determine the price of a ZEC in each energy year via set calculation based upon information provided by the electric distribution companies and ZEC recipients. Additionally, staff is to present the ZEC price annually in August of each year that the selected units are eligible to receive ZECs. Using the calculation approved by the board staff has determined that the ZEC price was $10 for the stub period in energy years 2020, 2021, and 2022. Staff recommends that the board issue an order determining the ZEC price to be $10 for the stub period in energy years 2020, 2021, and 2022 based upon staff's calculation.
So moved.
Second?
Questions, comments? There's also possibility of some federal action regarding nuclear power plants. And we'll have to see how that all shakes out and how it affects the state of New Jersey. But we are establishing the rate at $10 per ZEC. There are no questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Ferguson.
Yes. Paul, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, that brings us to energy item I. David. David. Just in case you didn't hear me.
Oh,
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, David.
The first item we have for you concerns comments that staff filed regarding PGM generation interconnection reform. On June 14, 2022, PGM interconnection filed at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission revisions to its tariff to reform its generation interconnection process. On July 14, 2022, board staff on behalf of the New Jersey Board of Health Utilities filed comments in response to PGM's interconnection process reforms that were proposed. The comments are in overall support of the proposed reforms to the PGM's new service request queue process. However, the current state of the PGM queue process is unacceptable.
I'm sorry, David. I'm having trouble. Are you doing I or J?
So that this PGM generation or I.
And that's, I'm sorry,
That's Jay.
that's
that's
just.
J.
I apologize, Mr. President.
David, I get confused enough.
I guess I need more coffee today. I'll start over. On March 26, 2021, Transcontinental Gas Pipeline Company, LLC, filed its application at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for approval to construct the Regional Energy Access Expansion Project pipeline. As part of this application, Transcontinental filed a study showing that New Jersey needed additional natural gas pipeline capacity due to an increase in demand for natural gas in New Jersey. However, on June 29, 2022, the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities approved findings of a report on the need for additional natural gas capacity. The report, which was completed by London Economics on behalf of the board, came to a different conclusion that Transcontinental's report by concluding that there were no need for additional natural gas pipeline capacity to serve New Jersey. To allow the Commission to better understand the need or lack the need for additional pipeline capacity, board staff on behalf of the board, along with the New Jersey Division of Rate Council, filed a motion at the Commission on June 11, 2022 to intervene out of time and to lodge the board's order accepting the findings of the gas capacity report and the report itself into the docket. Staff recommends that the board ratify the comments filed July 11, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, comments for David?
Comments?
Yes.
I have no problem ratifying the motion to intervene and lodge the board's gas capacity report with FERC in this matter. However, it's my understanding that the pipeline in question also serves to mitigate substantial reliability risks, actually risks that were also identified in the report. And that these risks were also identified by this board in tabletop exercises conducted in 2017 and 2019, and as I said, also appear in that report. So I think it would behoove us to include the reports also from the tabletop exercises along with the capacity study, so that FERC is provided with the full scope of how this pipeline affects New Jersey, because should there be a system failure like the one that happened in Pennsylvania in April 2016, which was what the tabletop exercises were geared to, take into consideration during a winter heating season. I, for one, at least would want to be on record with FERC that they have those reports available and know the implications to New Jersey. This board has acknowledged in the past, without reliable gas transmission and distribution, the ability to heat our homes will not be met, as we transition to clean energy. One need only look to Europe, CAISO, MISO, ERCOT for evidence of this fact. The other issue also, and I don't know that staff is aware or that it was pushed out, but the report that London Economics did was based upon a Levitan report that was done a while ago. I understand that there's been an updated Levitan report that has been submitted to FERC regarding this line. So just to have everything on record, like I said, I have no problem making this submission, but I think that all information should be out there with respect to this file.
Did Levitan update a report or issue a new one that we're aware of?
I believe that Levitan did update some of the findings of a previous report. I'd just like to clarify that while the London Economics report did take into account the Levitan report, it also looked at a different report that was filed by a different set of stakeholders.
Skipping stone. Yeah.
So the London Economics report was an independent report. It drew its own conclusions, but it did acknowledge and draw from the other reports.
Yeah.
And Commissioner, as to the tabletop reports and the other information, Staff will go back, we'll take a look at those, and we'll come back to you all for further discussion and recommendations on what's appropriate to file. Some of those things may have been superseded, may have been updated, but I agree with your comments that more information is better.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
There was one thing that came up in the briefing on this, and that was, I questioned, the use of the term capacity, because we're not really, people assume that when you say increased capacity, it's pipelines, and there are no pipelines that are involved in this going through New Jersey. It's regulators and the compressor station. So maybe that it regulates the capacity, but there are no pipelines involved. And that seems to be the key issue for most of the people that are protesting this.
And we have said in the past, from this dais, that as we continue to increase our renewable energy portfolio, less and less reliance on fossil fuels. That does not mean, and I don't want anyone to be misled, that that's going to happen overnight. This is a process. This is a long term game that we're engaged in here. And hopefully, and I maybe none of us will be around here to see it, but hopefully by 2050, we will have 100% clean energy generating our homes and our businesses and our industries. So this is a process, and it's a process that we've said many, many times that we take seriously and we look at prudently. Because we have to do it right. There's very little room, if any, for error. And doing it right will get us to our goal. Now, are we going to trip sometimes? Are we going to make mistakes sometimes? Yes. But we always have the opportunity to correct those mistakes. And some famous person, I forget who said it, but if you don't make mistakes, you're not doing anything. So we always have to keep in mind we've never done this before. And that's what makes it so exciting. Because we are indeed involved in an energy generation revolution, changing the whole aspect of how we generate energy for the benefit of this planet and for the benefit of future generations. So, it's a process. And that's why we work closely with the PJMs of the world and the FERCs of the world. And that's why we get involved with organizations like OPSI, Organization of PJM States. We not always win, right, Abe? But we give it one hell of a shot. We have to realize that OPSI is comprised of 13 states plus the District of Columbia. And every state has its own agenda. There's very little we have in common with West Virginia. So it's a process, and it's a process that includes trying to win over allies as we continue to move forward. Because no one can deny, even though there are some who still do, that climate change is real. So, how about the next one? Do we vote?
Not yet.
Why don't we vote?
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferlito?
Yes. Okay, now we can do J.
I think we've heard this before.
I won't try to jump ahead to another division.
You're doing all right, David.
Thank you, Mr. President. On June 14, 2022, PJM Interaction filed at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission tariff revisions to reform its generation interconnection process. On July 14, 2022, board staff on behalf of the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities filed comments in response to PJM's interconnection process reform proposal. The comments are in overall support for the proposed reforms to the PJM's new service request queue process. However, the current state of the PJM queue is unacceptable, and the transition period proposed to arrive at implementing such reform is neither timely nor appropriate. Therefore, staff's comments are critical of the PJM's efforts that have led to the current immense interconnection queue backlog, and emphasize that the transition period must be minimized to accommodate market needs and state policy goals. Accordingly, staff recommends that the board ratify the comments staff filed with FERC on July 14, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments? Yes.
Mr. President, I find the situation at PJM extraordinarily distressing. These interconnection backlogs lasting for years, it's just simply unacceptable. I mean, we are trying to develop our offshore wind resources, which will require interconnection. And you know, this is just standing in the way. We can't wait years for this to get fixed. PJM needs to streamline the process, find a better way of doing it. We can't have these delays of years. And if PJM can't do it, FERC needs to act on it. If FERC won't act on it, I think our congressional delegation should get involved. But this is just, these delays are just simply unacceptable.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you. And PJM knows that, and they have been made aware of that on more than one occasion. And I always say to them, my greatest fear, and if I have nightmares, if I can't sleep at night, and I have to admit I could probably sleep on a picket fence, so I do go to sleep at night. That we have offshore wind, we have solar, and there's no place to plug it in. And that is a major concern. And we are working every day with PJM to rectify that. We're also working every day with our individual utilities. Some have more problems than others with interconnection. The infrastructure has to be enhanced to the point where interconnections can be made. We have solar projects, just as an example, that can't get online because the utility doesn't have the ability to connect it. That's not acceptable also. So the infrastructure has to be continued to be worked on. As a matter of fact, one of the utilities I've called in because they have I thought we were at a single.
Yeah, interesting beat there, Karen.
Because they can't even connect a solar array. This is unacceptable. If we're going to continue to move prudently, but yet aggressively, toward a clean energy environment, all factors have to work together. FERC, PJM, utilities. There's no question about it. So, I'm 100% in agreement with you.
One comment?
Yes.
Yeah, not that this should make anyone feel any better, and certainly I agree with the comments, but these types of issues are nationwide issues. It's just not PJM, even in, single ISOs like ISO or NISO, similar issues exist. This is not a type of technology you can change on a dime. And, as we all know who are sitting in this room, are complicated issues, and each region, depending on where they are, have different issues as to why they can't bring this technology to the fore. And, sometimes you do get ahead of your skis, but the horse before the cart. These are national issues that are being dealt with. And, as the President says, we need to make sure when we do so that we do not stumble, because there's no way that you want to, have, the rolling blackouts or the issues that we've seen in other places and abroad, brought to the state of New Jersey. So, we are working, tirelessly. I had a briefing yesterday with Abe. We were having this discussion as to, how to move forward, and it's certainly something that is subject for all commissioners to consider.
Yes, good point. And there's just one difference as far as New Jersey is concerned. Most of the other states are not as far along as we are, which compounds our frustration. And that's a major difference. And it's something where we have moved quicker, and I would say more proficiently than most other states. We could probably, on one hand, name states that maybe are close to us or ahead of us or whatever, but we're just a handful out of the 50 states.
Mr. President, if I could just confirm that yesterday, last 2 days, I was at the Council of State Governments meeting in Manchester to speak on the New Jersey offshore wind program, and I was on a panel of colleagues from other states. We're light years ahead of the other states. I mean, in magnitude of what we're doing and in level of sophistication.
Yes.
So I just want to affirm what you said.
Yeah, and that's why all of these ancillary entities have to keep up with us. And but I know our utilities are working hard, but I encourage them to work harder as we continue to work with PJM. And we entered into the state agreement approach because it would further our accomplishments for clean energy. So, okay, David, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, we didn't vote?
Not yet.
Not too bad.
Why do I forget that? Because I'm flapping my gums, that's why. Why don't we vote, Carmen? Why didn't you do that?
That's a good idea. On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Fiordaliso?
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you,
President.
David. Good as usual, pal. No items under cable television. Joe Rivera, you're up for item 4A, which was discussed in closed executive session. And I indicated at that time that it would be considered here in the open meeting. So, Joe?
Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Commissioners. Earlier in the executive session, I made a presentation to you detailing the request of ECC Technologies Incorporated to add a subcontractor to the contract previously entered into between the board and ECC Technologies. Based upon our discussion, I ask that you authorize the amendment to the contract between the board and ECC Technologies. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferguson?
Yes, next time we'll give you more to say, Joe.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. That brings us to water. Michael? Five A.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Michael.
By order dated September 28, 2021, the board approved a maintenance contract for the provision of water supply services for the maintenance and management of 2 water storage tanks between the borough of Hohokus in Bergen County and Suez Advanced Solutions. Board approval over this contract was required even though the board does not normally have jurisdiction over Hohokus. On June 22nd, 2022, Hohokus requested an amendment to the contract in order to expand the scope of work to include an additional water storage tank. By later dated August 8th, 2022, the Division of Rate Counsel submitted comments which, among other things, stated that the expanded scope of work identified additional work to be performed under the umbrella of the existing board-approved contract and that board approval may not be required. Rate Counsel went on to state that the terms of the expanded scope of work were not unreasonable and that it had no objection to the board approving the expanded scope of work. Rate Counsel recommended that the board should indicate that the board's jurisdiction over the expanded scope of work should terminate until or unless the contract is amended to change the formula or other basis for determining charges contained in the expanded scope of work were consistent with NJSA 58:26-25(7)(c). Staff recommends that the board approve the expanded scope of work to include the additional water storage tank subject to certain conditions as specified in the order.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Michael? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferguson?
Yes. 5B, New Jersey American.
Yes, on January 13th, 2022, New Jersey American Water Company filed a petition seeking to increase its base tariff rates and charges for water and wastewater service amounting to approximately $94.7 million or a 11.71% increase in additional annual revenues. Subject to the public hearings for this matter, New Jersey American, the Division of Rate Counsel, and the Optional Industrial Wholesale Coalition entered into a stipulation which was approved by Administrative Law Judge Tricia Calguire that recommended that New Jersey American be permitted to increase its base rates in a manner designed to produce a total annual operating revenue increase for water and wastewater service of approximately $45.5 million, an overall revenue increase of 5.67%. As a result of the stipulation, the bills for most of the company's customers will increase from $62.39 per month, $65.31 per month, or $2.93 per month, which is an increase of 4.69%. Staff recommends that the board adopt the stipulation. Staff further recommends that New Jersey American be directed to file tariffs consistent with the terms of the stipulation.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferguson?
Yes. 5C, again, New Jersey American.
Yes. On March 31st, 2022, New Jersey American filed a petition for authorization to implement a distribution system improvement charge, or DSIC, for the renewal of water distribution system assets for the period 2022 to 2025. New Jersey American Water Company, the Division of Rate Counsel, and board staff entered into a stipulation that recommended that the company's new foundational filing be approved. Staff recommends that the board adopt the stipulation. Staff further recommends that the board order New Jersey American to file revised tariffs consistent with the terms of the stipulation.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferlisa?
Yes. And the final one, Michael, also New Jersey American.
Also New Jersey American. Egg Harbor City in Atlantic County owns and operates a water and wastewater system that provides water and wastewater service to approximately 1,500 water customers and approximately 1,400 wastewater customers within the city and also in portions of the townships of Galloway and Mullica. On September 30th, 2022, New Jersey American filed a petition pursuant to the Water Infrastructure Protection Act, or WIPA, for approval of an agreement between the city and New Jersey American, as well as the determination that the purchase price pursuant to the agreement was reasonable and that certain transaction costs should be recovered in a future base rate case. The matter was transmitted to the Office of Administrative Law and was assigned to Administrative Law Judge Jacob Gertzman. After a series of telephonic status conference between ALJ Gertzman, representatives of New Jersey American, Rate Counsel, and board staff entered into a stipulation that resolved all issues related to the proceeding. Middlesex Water Company, which had been granted intervenor status by Judge Gertzman, filed a letter indicating that it did not object to the stipulation. ALJ Gertzman filed his initial decision on July 7th, recommending that the board adopt the stipulation. Staff recommends that the board adopt the initial decision.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Yes.
I call this the Kreskin petition because you said it was filed on September 30, 2022.
Oh.
What date?
2021.
2021, okay. I know it was kicking around a while.
Yeah.
Glad this was a tricky one. It's interesting though. Glad it got through.
Yeah, there was a number of interesting issues that arose during the course of this.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for that clarification. Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferlisa?
Yes. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good day. Reliability and security, there are no items listed under customer assistance. Maureen. How's Maureen today?
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Item 7A concerns a request from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs for approval of Universal Service Fund Program's administrative cost budget for fiscal year 2023. The DCA administers the USF program on the board's behalf, and this year has provided monthly credits on the electric and natural gas bills of approximately 220,000 households, which is an increase of 53% from this time last year. For fiscal year 2023, DCA is requesting $9,875,034, which is less than 5% of the current year's $215 million total program budget for USF. Included in the administrative budget request are DCA's costs for administering the program, as well as costs for DCA's sub-grantees, which process USF applications and provide outreach to the public at the local level. The administrative budget represents a 23% increase from last year's budget of $8,005,013. Due to shared program infrastructure between USF and DCA's federal LIHEAP program, each year DCA submits a joint USF LIHEAP budget. Costs are broken down between the two programs according to the percentage of recipients that benefited from each program in the prior fiscal year. Therefore, most line item increases in the fiscal 23 budget were due to the increase in USF enrollment, which occurred in fiscal '22. The increase in USF enrollment is due to temporary program expansions which were put in place in response to the pandemic. It should be noted that this is only a budget. Board staff will return to the board with an accounting of all fiscal year '23 expenses for board approval. Board staff has thoroughly reviewed the budget and found it appropriate and necessary for administering the program. Therefore, staff recommends that the fiscal year '23 USF administrative cost budget be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Maureen? Roll call.
The motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Verlies.
Yes, thank you, Maureen. That brings us to clean energy. 8A, Kelly, you're up. EVs, huh, Kelly?
EVs, filling in for Kathleen here.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. President and Commissioners. In June of 2022, the board approved the FY23 Clean Fleet Program as part of the New Jersey Clean Energy Program's FY23 budget. The FY23 budget order allocates $10 million to the Clean Fleet Program, dedicating $6 million to the state for state vehicle fleets and $4 million to eligible local and municipal governments for their fleets. The Clean Fleet Program offers incentives to local and state government entities for the purchase of electric vehicles and EV chargers. Staff is proposing modifications to the FY23 program as follows. Staff recommends that the FY23 program add an incentive of up to 50% of the make-ready cost up to $5,000 for level 2 fleet chargers and up to 50% of the make-ready cost up to $50,000 for DCFC fleet charging for eligible entities. Staff recommends that the FY23 program include a DCFC incentive of up to $50,000 up to the cost of each eligible charger. These programmatic recommendations are consistent with the FY22 program and will allow funding for make-ready only on fleet chargers, as there are currently no utility incentives available for this purpose. The eligibility and programmatic requirements of Clean Fleet remain the same except for these two additions of these two incentives. Staff recommends approval of the proposed modifications.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Kelly? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Verlies.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. Stacy. Now, Stacy, 8B has 400 parts to it. I said,
Yes, there are a lot of utilities involved, yes.
one vote?
One vote.
Okay. So, go to it.
Okay, good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners.
Good morning,
Welcome.
Stacy.
Commissioner Christodoulou. On November 8th, 2021, the state's investor-owned utilities filed a joint letter petition with the board requesting approval to implement a proposed joint utility solution to the budget constraints experienced during the first triennium or triennium 1 of approved energy efficiency or PE programs.
Stacy, I'm sorry.
Do you not hear me well?
No, I'm not hearing.
Let me try this.
That's better,
Much
Stacy.
better.
It's
Thank you.
awkward. Okay, how about that?
Good.
That's good.
Okay. Staff notified all parties to the joint petitioner's original docketed EE cases of November 8th, 2021 joint petition. Following discovery and settlement conferences, the Utilities New Jersey Division of Rate Counsel and board staff, collectively the parties, reached an agreement to enter a stipulation of settlement resolving all issues raised in or related to the November 8th, 2021 joint petition. By way of background, in its June 10th, 2020 order, the board approved a transition framework for EE programs implemented pursuant to the Clean Energy Act, or CEA, including requirements for the utilities to establish programs that reduce the use of electricity and natural gas within their territories. The board directed the utilities to submit their first respective 3-year filings for EE and peak demand reduction programs. As the June 2020 order requires, the utilities coordinated extensively on the design of programs. Many of the approved programs provide an opportunity
opportunity to deliver comprehensive energy efficiency solutions to customers that can reduce both their gas and electric usage and increase their energy savings. This requires a sharing of investments and savings for dual fuel projects where electric and gas utility service territories overlap. In such a territory overlap scenario, a utility that serves as a primary point of contact for customers, contractors, and trade allies for a project is considered to be the lead utility for that project. Customers and contractors have the option of applying to either their electric or gas utility to participate in a program when their project involves both fuels. The lead utility follows the project through to completion, pays the project incentive and financing or ongoing payment if relevant, and then works with its applicable electric or gas partner utility to transfer the energy savings for their fuel and the cost of the investment for their share of the project, commensurate with savings for each fuel. The utilities have established a joint budget allocation committee to monitor the status of program budgets. While partner utilities have board-approved budgets that are forecasted at the time of approval to be sufficient to achieve their respective energy efficiency savings targets, in some instances these budgets are proving insufficient to cover a partner utility's share of costs for all of the dual-fuel EE projects that a lead utility is able to implement in a shared service territory. The stipulation allows the utilities to implement certain remedies to address budget constraints, including allowing lead utilities to use their approved budgets to invest in dual fuel, that is electric and gas, EE projects on behalf of their partner utilities. The stipulation also allows utilities to apply energy savings in excess of annual compliance goals for goals and targets in program years 2023, 2024, and 2025. The petition will not alleviate the utility's minimum energy savings obligations under the CEA. I'll also note that throughout discovery and settlement discussions on this matter, staff consulted with the statewide evaluator of New Jersey's EE programs to ensure that the stipulation took into account the best available information and approaches in the treatment of energy savings attributed to EE programs. Staff requests and recommends board approval of the stipulation in this matter, which resolves all issues raised in or related to the petition. So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Stacy?
Just one.
Yes.
Yeah. I know during our briefing, and I saw that you included that, mentioned that we also had the state evaluator review the program and the stipulations, so to speak, as to how we should handle this. And I think that's really important that it's not just us and the utilities making decisions, the rate council, that we're taking advantage of that opportunity to have them review what we're doing and give their imprimatur or give their input. So I was happy to hear that.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Saul,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Felice.
Yes. And C?
Yes, I'm filling in for Kevin Ness on this one. This item pertains to the School and Small Business Energy Efficiency Program, which was created by the board in response to legislation in October 2021. The program includes the School and Small Business Installation and Energy Efficiency Verification and Repair, or HVAC program, which provides grants to schools and small businesses for the maintenance and replacement of certain heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. This program pays for 75% of project costs. Specifically under the replacement path of the HVAC program, an applicant is able to apply for a utility incentive to apply to a 25% cost share. This can create a unique situation where both the state and utility incentive are applied to the same project, which impacts the attribution of energy savings associated with the project under the Clean Energy Act. The statute that authorizes this program states, the board shall adjust energy efficiency saving targets as necessary to ensure that energy savings created through the expenditures made pursuant to this law are not double counted in any public utility energy efficiency program. Staff engaged in discussions with the utilities, rate council, and the program administrator on the issues of savings attribution, taking into consideration the overlap between state administration of the HVAC program and utility incentives that applicants may receive as part of participation in the program, the small size of anticipated energy savings generated from the HVAC program relative to energy savings that may be generated statewide, and the logistical complications and lack of cost effectiveness of apportioning savings between the state and the utilities. Staff believe will benefit the program
not to apportion the energy savings. Staff recommends that the board direct the utilities to be able to account 100% of energy savings associated with any equipment that was used financial incentives from both the HVAC program and the utility program toward the utilities' energy savings goals. And I'll just also note that we don't anticipate this will be the scenario in the future with any other programs. This is kind of a one of a kind, and we are taking measures to make sure that there are no overlaps in the same project of utility and state incentives.
Good.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments for Stacy? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff recommendation, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Felice.
Yes, thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Mr. Hunter, you have a couple of very long items.
He's going to talk fast. He's going to talk fast.
And you're going to get through them, boom, 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 right?
I'm going to make my best effort.
I know,
All right.
you always do,
All
Scott.
right, I'm setting my timer.
Scott, the 8D
Yes, sir.
is one vote.
President, Commissioners, and Commissioner Christodoulou, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
In the next four items for the board's consideration, staff lays out a series of recommendations related to solar projects in the Transition Incentive Program, or TI, aimed at providing clarity, certainty, and support for a number of solar projects and classes of projects that share multiple beneficial attributes for the state, while weighing the cost of the extension of those projects and increased incentive levels on ratepayers. These recommendations are consistent with the board's historic, balanced, and thoughtful approach to each program and petition and ensure a smooth transition between the TI and successor programs, carefully evaluating project maturity and various factors, and delineating between projects appropriately included in the TI program and those more suited for successor programs. In this first matter, staff recommends the board consider the petition of 15 entities with 37 projects seeking extensions of time to complete the TI program. The TI program was approved by board order dated December 6, 2019, to serve as an opportunity for incentive for solar projects after the closure of the legacy SREC program until the opening of the successor incentive program. The interim nature of the TI program has been continuously reinforced since inception of the program. Consistent with the interim nature of the program, there are no provisions for extension of incentive eligibility in the board order or rules for the program. All projects in TI, except those conditionally certified as subsection T projects, are provided 1 year to commence commercial operations and submit a post-construction certification package. The incentives in the TI program were developed from cost data collected in the legacy SREC program from 2017 through 2019. Projects anticipated to be served by the TI program were primarily those registered in the legacy SREC program that were not expected to meet the statutory deadline for closure. The board determined that the state's installed solar capacity provided 5.1% of our retail electricity consumption in May 2020, requiring the closure of the SREC, legacy SREC registration program and opening of the TI program. By order dated July 28, 2021, the board directed staff to close the TI program to new registrations on August 27, 2021. At the same agenda meeting, the board also established the administratively determined incentive program within the successor solar incentive program and directed staff to begin accepting registrations on August 28, 2021. The petitions and factual circumstances addressed in this agenda item are described in the draft order provided to the board. The vast majority of the registrations for the projects covered by the petitions were submitted in the last week before the registration window are closed. The petitions frequently cite general supply chain and labor shortage issues and rely upon news articles documenting the nationwide delays. In some cases, the articles were published before the project registrations were even submitted. Staff have carefully reviewed the petitions and find a similar fact pattern among the causes of their inability to meet the 1 year deadline required for TI program eligibility. When submitted, these projects were not mature enough to meet the TI deadlines, and they were not delayed by unforeseen interconnection upgrades required by their local electric distribution company, such as those in the Gibbstown case that provided an extension opportunity for similarly situated projects. And that was in the June general meeting. As a result, staff makes the following 3 recommendations. That the board find that the petitioners have not established adequate factual basis or demonstrated good cause justifying a waiver of the board's rules. Second, the board find that the petitioners should not receive extensions for the subject projects. And finally, the board waive for the petitioners' projects the board's rules in the administratively determined incentive program that requires that they receive a notice of conditional registration in the ADI program prior to commencing commercial construction, so as to provide these projects with an appropriate pathway to a more suitable successor program and completion.
So moved.
Second.
I think, as I've said before, Scott has been around the solar industry for a lot of years. And during my tenure here, over the past 17 years, he has taught me a lot about the solar industry. And I think as he goes through these various items in his presentation, his total presentation, I think it demonstrates the desire of this board to work with the solar industry. Change is difficult. We all have difficulty sometimes in adjusting to change. But we went through, and I'm repeating myself, I know, but we went through the same thing back in 2007-8 when we went into the SREC program. The sky was falling. The sky did not fall. The solar industry thrived. We have almost 7,000 people employed in the solar industry today. We want to work with the solar industry, and I think as Scott continues to go through his agenda here, it's going to demonstrate our desire to work with the industry. An industry that we cultivated over the past almost 20 years. So it's not something, or not an industry we in any way want to harm. Far be it from that. It's an industry that we have constantly, ever since I've been here, supported, worked with. So I ask for their cooperation too. I ask for them to look at the entire picture. I certainly know where they're coming from, but by the same token, by transitioning into another, quote, program, we're relieving some of the burden on the ratepayer. And they knew that. The industry knew that right from the start. The industry knew that eventually they were going to get closer to standing on their own 2 feet. I firmly believe that government has a role in promoting the public interest. And if that means creating an industry, which we did here in New Jersey, then we create an industry. But at a certain point, as that industry matures, as it grows up, just like a child, they stand on their own 2 feet. So anything we've done over the past number of years has not been a surprise. It has just been a reinforcement of what the plan was right from the start. And that plan was very transparent. We did nothing in secret. We did it in conjunction with the stakeholders. We did it in conjunction with the solar industry. And I think the state of New Jersey has thrived. I think the developers, solar developers, have thrived. And if we continue to work together, we will continue to maintain the solar industry as a major industry here in the state of New Jersey. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Just an addendum, Mr. President, to the comments you made. You know, whenever a government entity, whether it's the state of New Jersey, the federal government, any public entity, engages in advancing incentive programs to get an industry started to achieve a public policy goal, that organization needs to balance the goals of advancing the new industry against the cost impact. And at some point, you need to cut back on those incentives when that industry grows up, as you put it. If you don't do that, the risk is the ratepayers subsidize inefficiency. And that's not what we want to do. We want to get the industry on its feet, let the market take over at some point so that the most efficient organizations thrive, and those who can't compete, pursue other things.
Called capitalism.
Yeah. Last comment, John?
Any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, just throw my 2 cents as well. I totally agree with you that the board and staff have been very transparent in crafting the new solar program. I don't think there's anyone that says that we haven't been, and I think we've been, and as Scott goes through these different items, you can see how, I think, reasonable and balanced the approach has been to the interests of all those whose applications are in question here. There's not, frankly, a solar project that exists that doesn't have a place within our solar program. There's not an application that can't find a home, so to speak. So, if you're interested in having it, there's some place that you're going to be able to reside here in New Jersey. And the restructured solar incentive, as you said, was well telegraphed. There was no ambiguity about what transition meant. And it provides for an anticipated that there be some commercial risk involved. Yeah. But it also provided for commercial stability moving forward. And clearly, I think that we have moved the program to be more in line with national standards, frankly. And I think that your approach with these particular items, I am in total agreement.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Verlies?
Yes. Letter E, Scott?
Yes, sir. In this matter, staff recommends that the board address the registration limit for solar projects proposed by public entities in the Transition Incentive Program. More than 320 solar projects are registered in the program as public entities with an aggregate capacity exceeding 176 megawatts. The total count of public entities with TI program registrations includes more than 200 public schools, 54 public universities, and a variety of municipalities and municipal authorities, often with multiple solar projects. The TI pipeline includes 23 public entities that are participating in the Energy Savings Improvement Program, or ESIP, that have proposed at least one solar installation in their energy savings plan. The board has received at least 12 petitions on behalf of public entity solar projects seeking an extension of the TI program expiration dates. Municipal and public solar school projects provide benefits beyond the solar development enabled and electricity produced. These projects contribute financial security to the public entities by allowing them to provide services with lower energy costs, thus reducing taxpayer burdens. In addition, solar projects on public buildings can provide visibility for and education about clean energy. These types of projects due in part to the requirements for public contracting and the requirements for construction on public property consistently face unique challenges in achieving commercial operation. Staff makes the following 5 recommendations to ensure that the budgeting and planning capabilities of public entities are not disrupted by an inability to complete construction and begin operation by the current TIA program deadlines. First, the board find that good cause exists for granting a blanket extension to all public projects that have current registrations pending in the Transition Incentive Program, or that have petitions pending before the board. Second, the board waived the timeline requirements in the Transition Incentive Program for this class of projects. Third, the board grant up to 2 6-month extensions conditioned upon projects' submission of documentation demonstrating the status of project development and viability, including quarterly submissions of standardized milestone reporting form. Fourth, the board direct the program administrator to issue a revised final acceptance letter to projects that meet the conditions specified by the board order. And finally, the board find that any given project may only qualify for one category of blanket extension. For instance, a public entity filing for an extension as a public entity may not also seek an extension as a subsection T of community solar project.
That's your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Yes.
I really like this. The ESIP program, which is the Energy Savings Incentive Program, needs this kind of flexibility. It's so complex. This is a key portion of the financing tool, and to have to sort of moving target because you can't meet a deadline and then the economics of the project will completely change. I think this is important for helping these public entities. They're extensive, they involve multiple facilities of various types, and the whole idea is to provide a good, stable incentive program that will finance, self-finance by the energy savings. So I am really happy about this.
And I think it points out too that part of government's responsibility, whether we're talking about the federal, state, county, local, is to lead by example. And most of this work, a lot of this work, is going to be done on a local level. And they have to be engaged, and we have to look at this as liberally as we possibly can to encourage those local municipalities to engage with clean energy more aggressively than some of them are doing right now. So leading by example is the best way. Any other questions? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferlisa?
Yes, and let us continue with F. Scott.
In this matter, staff recommends that the board address the terms of eligibility of solar projects in the Transition Incentive Program that have been granted conditional certification pursuant to subsection T of the Solar Act of 2012, or will receive conditional certification of their application, pending review by staff and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Subsection T requires certain solar projects seeking solar incentives to be determined by the board in consultation with the NJDEP to be located on properly closed sanitary landfills, brownfields, or areas of historic fill. The state has a long history of promoting solar on these types of environmentally sensitive properties in order to relieve the pressure
from the solar development on open space and farmland. There are currently 30 subsection T projects totaling nearly 500 megawatts in solar capacity that seek eligibility in the transition incentive program. 10 of these projects for approximately 117 megawatts, the board has provided conditional certification, and an additional 20 projects at nearly 375 megawatts are under review by staff of the DEP. These projects by statute are what we refer to as grid supply projects, meaning they sell their power into the wholesale electricity markets operated by PJM Interconnection LLC. Most, if not all, of the projects have or will be subject to delays resulting from the backlog of new generator interconnection requests at PJM. The exact length of delay depends upon when the project entered the PJM queue, where it's located, and whether the project requires upgrades to the transmission grid. PJM has proposed reforms to the interconnection process to handle the backlog and improve processing times. Given the current backlog and proposed changes to the PJM interconnection process, which must be followed by all subsection T projects, and the unique challenges faced by these projects located in sensitive locations requiring site-specific environmental protections, staff suggests an extension to the time to complete construction is warranted. In addition, given the consistent widespread nature of the delays, a single blanket extension granted via board order will be more equitably levied and less administratively burdensome than handling extension requests case by case. Therefore, staff makes the following 5 recommendations. First, the board finds that good cause exists for granting a blanket extension to all subsection T projects that have been conditionally certified or have submitted applications for transition incentive program certification. Second, the board waived the timeline requirements in the transition incentive program for this class of projects. Third, the board granted up to 2 6-month extensions conditioned upon a project developer's submission of documentation demonstrating the status of project development and viability, including quarterly submissions of standardized milestone reporting form. Fourth, the board directed the TI program administrator to issue a revised conditional acceptance letter to projects that meet the conditions specified by the board order. And finally, the board finds that any given project may only qualify for one category of blanket extension. For instance, a public entity filing for an extension as a public entity may not also seek an extension as a subsection T or community solar project.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Felice?
Yes. G, it's one of those long ones again.
Last but not least,
You're doing good.
You're doing great.
Don't stop now.
Mr. President, Commissioners, there are 9 petitions currently before the board covering a total of 10 community solar projects that were awarded by the board in program year 1 of the community solar pilot program. The petitions were submitted by Nexam, Lyon County Utilities Authority, Manchester Township, AC Power, OCCS Landfill, Belmar Gateway Solar, Brick Church Developer, and Linden Hawk Rise Solar. As you know, these projects were awarded by the board on December 20, 2019. All projects had a deadline of April 30th, 2022 to reach commercial operation and submit a post-construction certification package in order to receive incentives under the TI program. The petitioners now seek extensions of the project completion deadlines due to various causes of delay. It should be noted that these projects, like all projects registered in the TI program, have already benefited from 2 6-month extensions granted by the board on July 29, 2020 and June 24, 2021. The petitions and factual circumstances are provided in the draft order provided to the board. In developing the recommendation, staff considered the following. The pilot program was the board's first implementation of the community solar model, which allows electricity customers to remotely participate in the solar project. The pilot program is designed to be of limited size and duration to provide an opportunity to learn how community solar projects will be developed and implemented. Staff used lessons learned in the Program Year 1 solicitation to inform Program Year 2 in 2021. The board elected to forego a third solicitation in the pilot program, directing staff to use the experience gained in the first and second solicitations to develop rules for a permanent community solar program. And before I read staff's recommendations, I'd like to state that all the credit for this agenda item goes to Rachel Boylan, Jeremy Bowman, and Sawyer Ward. Staff makes the following 4 recommendations. Staff recommends granting the request for extension of the project completion requirements for the following: the Nexamp South Brunswick Project, OCCS, Belmar Gateway, and Linden Park. The projects in these petitions are in advanced stage of development and are nearing or have achieved commercial operation. These petitioners have requested extensions that are 6 months or less and have shown specific causes for delay and specific timelines for imminent completion. Second, staff recommends denying the request for extension of the project completion requirements for the following: AC Power, Atlantic County Utility Authority, the Nexamp Wood Mining Project, Brick Church, and Manchester Township. The projects in these petitions are still in the early stage of development and are not nearing commercial operation. These petitioners have requested extensions of 1 year or more and do not have specific timelines for forthcoming completion. Staff does not believe that it is in the public's interest to provide extensions to projects that do not appear likely to complete within a reasonable time frame. Third, if the board denies these petitions, they can apply when the permanent program is established. In order to provide continuity and certainty for developers, however, staff recommends that the board state that these projects accepted in the pilot program will have an opportunity to apply for the permanent program, regardless of the project selection methodology in that program. And fourth and finally, staff notes that the community solar deadlines set forth in the Administrative Code Title 14, Chapter 8, Subchapter 9.3C8 contemplates an extension opportunity, although the TI program rules do not. Staff has received several reports from Program Year 2 developers indicating that the 18-month deadline currently provided will likely be insufficient, particularly for the interconnection process. Staff believes that granting a 6-month extension to the community solar award up front and the equivalent 6-month extension to the TI program deadline will provide needed certainty to all program participants. Therefore, staff's final recommendation in this matter is to provide a 6-month extension to the TI program deadline for projects conditionally approved in the Program Year 2 of the pilot program.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? I think it's, I'm not going to go through what everyone said before, obviously, but just to show our commitment and, or to further show our commitment, the solar industry has surpassed 4 gigawatts. 4 gigawatts of installed capacity. That's remarkable. And in furtherance of our commitment to solar, board staff also recently announced that they have expedited the review of administratively determined incentive program to consider what, if any, changes are necessary. I look forward to their forthcoming recommendations. And I want to congratulate you and the team, Scott, in coming up with what I believe is an equitable program and solution to this transition period. And as usual, a job well done. Any other comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendations, Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
President Berluso.
Yes, thank you. All right, Ben, with money, Ben.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. First, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our newest Commissioner, Dr. Christodoulou. Welcome. In 2021, the Board directed staff to issue an RFQ to retain a consultant to provide modeling and analysis of the rate impact resulting from implementing the state's clean energy goals provided in the 2019 Energy Master Plan. The Board engaged the Brattle Group, to conduct this modeling and analysis. So today, on behalf of staff and the Brattle Group, it is my pleasure to present a report titled New Jersey Energy Master Plan Ratepayer Impact Study. First, I want to acknowledge the many hours of diligent work by our consultant Brattle, as well as other staff from the Office of the Economist, the Energy Division, the Division of Clean Energy, and the Office of Policy. But in particular, I want to acknowledge the efforts of Diane Crilly and Abe Silverman, who were critical to the success of this report and spent many weekends and nights working to make sure that this came together. The last major revision of the New Jersey Energy Master Plan, or EMP, was completed in late 2019, published in early 2020. The EMP included the determination of a least cost pathway to achieve the goals and mandates of the Clean Energy Act of 2018. This least cost pathway model was a high-level macro model based on cost estimates to supply enough energy to meet all of the energy demand statewide, while also meeting the mandate to transition to 100% clean energy by 2050. But it was not granular enough to estimate the impacts on specific utility rates and end customer bills. The ratepayer impact study presenting today does just that. The EMP itself provides a roadmap to achieving the state's clean energy goal of 100% clean energy by 2050, a goal critical for addressing the impacts of climate change. The scope of this study was designed to answer the question that was raised by many stakeholders. What is the impact of EMP programs on consumers' energy bills? For most programs considered by the Board, the policy process involves robust stakeholder engagement, and this study was no different. Two stakeholder meetings were held to encourage input from our community of stakeholders and to provide information about the study. The first stakeholder meeting was held on March 25th to invite comments on the study design and key assumptions at the beginning of the modeling and analysis phase. More than 170 people participated in the 3.5-hour meeting. Then on May 23rd, a second stakeholder meeting was held to provide a mid-study update on modeling and assumptions and to share adjustments made in response to stakeholder feedback received through the March meeting. Almost 150 people participated in this second meeting, which lasted 2.5 hours. In addition to verbal comments received at the meetings, more than 50 written comments were submitted by stakeholders and reviewed and considered by the project team. Adjustments to the modeling framework and analysis were incorporated based on the input from stakeholders. Many of the verbal and written comments received focused on two topic areas. First, many stakeholders sought a much broader and detailed analysis of the benefits that flow from the successful build-out of clean energy infrastructure and programs. A detailed analysis of additional benefits was out of scope for this particular study because these benefits are not included in rates and do not affect customer bills. However, economic and climate benefits are often provided when the Board considers a specific individual clean energy program and project. A second area of focus for some stakeholders was a request to include the upfront or capital investment costs associated with the purchase of clean energy alternatives, such as heat pumps or energy efficiency equipment. These customer-side investment costs were also considered out of scope for this study because similarly, they are not included in rates. Capital investments in energy-efficient appliances, heating, electric vehicles, residential rooftop solar, for example, are not a requirement or mandate of state energy policy and are therefore voluntary and do not directly impact customer utility rates. Based on this stakeholder input, however, staff acknowledges that interest in an analysis of the upfront capital investments is important and will incorporate this feedback into future studies and recommendations. Recognizing the many climate, economic, and health benefits that flow from investments in clean energy solutions, the state does provide economic incentives to encourage adoption of and investment in clean energy solutions. These economic incentives are included in rates and were the subject of the modeling and analysis conducted for this study. Regarding the design and structure of the study, Rattle estimated total energy costs in the year 2030 for 4 classes of customer: residential low income, residential non-low income, and small and large commercial and industrial users. For each class of customer, Brattle analyzed utility-specific data from almost every utility service territory or combination of gas and electric service territory, and compared these costs to energy costs in 2020. We're looking at a 10-year horizon. Additionally, the comparison of customer energy costs in 2030 to 2020 was evaluated under 3 different scenarios: a current policy pathway, an EMP achievement pathway, and an ambitious pathway. The current policy pathway includes the cost of clean energy programs currently mandated by statute or executive action and consistent with current market trajectories. The EMP achievement pathway includes clean energy program costs, which would be necessary to meet the EMP's least cost pathway, which is designed to result in 100% clean energy by 2050. And the ambitious pathway scenario looks at costs associated with earlier achievement of 100% clean energy by 2035 instead of 2050. In addition to the 4 customer classes, Brattle compared the results for each of the 3 pathways across different customer types to examine the incremental impacts for customers that adopt various ways to increase use of clean energy solutions. The customer types include 4 for residential and 3 for commercial and industrial, and describe various levels of clean energy adoption. I'd like to share 3 key takeaways. The first key takeaway is that encouraging customers to reduce their consumption of electricity and natural gas through energy efficiency alone can offset much of the expected rise in fuel and delivery costs by 2030. Second, pairing energy efficiency investments with moving to an electric vehicle is even more successful in reducing emissions and costs for the average consumer. And adding electrification of building heating can lower costs in 2030 to levels even below 2020 for many customers under all 3 pathways. A corollary to these savings and reduction of emissions of greenhouse gases is that customers who are not able to or don't implement any of the greenhouse gas reduction measures are likely to see their energy costs increase from 2020 levels by an average of around 16% by 2030. Roughly half of that increase, though, is due to general increases in energy and energy-related costs, the other half being from clean energy policies. A third key takeaway is that delivering energy efficiency and electrification solutions to low-income customers is vital to reaching the statewide goals in the Clean Energy Act and the EMP. Low-income customers often spend more of their annual household budget on energy needs and historically have fewer opportunities to participate in clean energy solutions. Therefore, it will be important for the board to expand existing programs designed to assist low-income customers and to create new opportunities, like community solar as an example, to ensure that all New Jerseyans can benefit from the transition to 100% clean energy. In conclusion, staff believes this report and its findings to be accurate and to be beneficial to the board and the public in understanding the cost implications of the incentives for clean energy pathways described and analyzed. Staff therefore recommend the board accept this report titled New Jersey Energy Master Plan Ratepayer Impact Study and make it available to the public on the board's website.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Comments? After reviewing the extensive stakeholder comments on the rate impact study, it is clear there is agreement on all sides that the impact study missed the mark. No one should contemplate using the study to inform policy decisions on future BPU and utility programs. When the BPU first contemplated to do a rate impact study, Rutgers Center for Green Buildings was to do the study as part of its engagement with our Office of Clean Energy. The study was originally intended to be released along with the EMP, but when that study failed to materialize, staff recommended that the board put out an RFQ, and ultimately engaged the Brattle Group. When I voted for the RFQ, it was my understanding, and I believe the understanding of virtually everybody looking forward to having this study conducted, that we would be provided with useful information about the Energy Master Plan's impact on rates. When you make wholesale changes to generate and move electricity, as the EMP suggests, there needs to be a discussion of both costs of implementation and operation, not to mention the cost of upgrading our grid to accommodate this mass electrification, which, without grid upgrades at significant cost, as we know, will result in the failure of the system. That means we need to know what it will cost to get there and what it will cost once we get there. All of that will go into what ratepayers will ultimately pay. Indeed, as pointed out by the environmental community, the report does not even assess the savings realized by converting to clean energy. Because the BPU's responsibility is to ensure reliable energy at reasonable rates, we cannot ignore all of the factors that contribute to the rate. To suggest that a discussion of rates does not include capital costs to create the sources of energy, in the words of one commenter, quote, hides the cost of the EMP, end quote, and fails to provide to us as commissioners or the ratepayers we serve with the information that this report was supposed to give. The one thing that the rate impact study does do is tell us how much the average ratepayer in New Jersey, who is typically not wealthy and can ill afford higher utility rates, will pay to subsidize solar, EVs, home electrification for the wealthiest New Jersey residents, those wealthy residents who frankly don't need the help. For that reason, the rate impact study is not only uninformative, but suggests the impact of the EMP has been and will be inequitable. For all these reasons, I will not be voting in favor of accepting the report.
Any other questions or comments? I have some. I think it's important for us as a society to determine what the cost will be if we do nothing. And if we do nothing, that's what we're going to be judged on by future generations when they have no place to live. The study was originally done by Rutgers, and I'll leave it at that. We were not satisfied with that report. We went to the Brattle Group. As we set out to achieve a clean energy future for New Jersey, the cost impact to our ratepayers is always first and foremost in our mind. That's why we approach things prudently. We approach things always with the ratepayer in mind. And we will never deviate from that path. The report we're accepting today demonstrates that energy costs will be reduced for those ratepayers who embrace energy efficiency and electrify their homes and vehicles. And the key here is energy efficiency. As a society, we have never really been energy efficient. And the sooner we get off of fossil fuels, the better this world and this planet will be. The report also makes it very clear that we will need to take concrete steps beyond our current energy bill payment assistance programs to encourage and enable all, let me underline all, residents to participate in the clean energy revolution that we're going through, regardless of where they live and what they can afford. Community solar as an example. This means we will need to ensure that our programs, whether for energy efficiency or electric vehicles or other programs, take into account the need to make electrification possible and affordable for all residents, not just for the wealthy. And now we'll have additional resources to make that happen with the help of the federal government through the Inflation Reduction Act, signed yesterday by President Biden. We finally have an administration in Washington who wants to partner with states like New Jersey. Partner to make clean energy the major source of energy in our country and on our planet. The report we're accepting today. And we always have to keep in mind that the Energy Master Plan is a roadmap. And it's a roadmap to get us to 2050. We're in a marathon here. We're not in a 2-minute Belmont racetrack race to see who wins. And if we don't continue to move forward and bring all of our 9.3 million residents with us, we're not going to achieve our goal. Are there any other comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. A major takeaway for me relates to affordable housing. I think the results of this analysis are yet another strong argument for this state for building affordable housing. This is something we've wrestled with since the 1980s. But the fact that ratepayers would benefit in terms of their household budgets in paying less for heating their homes if they're electrified, and similarly paying less if the efficiency of their energy efficiency of their homes are improved. I think those are strong arguments for new construction. I mean, there are many reasons why we should be building more housing in this state. the fact that households would experience lower bills if they had more efficient housing and electrified housing, I think are strong arguments for building more housing in the state.
And you're right, that's always been a problem. And initially, the Mount Laurel case was supposed to take care of that.
Right.
And so on, and it has to some extent, but not to the extent I don't think any of us
I mean,
want
there's
it.
so many other problems that would be addressed if we could deal with our housing problem. Here's another reason why we should be building new housing. It's easier to provide efficient, electrified housing with new construction.
Yes.
No, I'll argue that one. I'd like to argue that one.
Yeah.
Having worked very hard on the Tax Credit Rehabilitation Act for communities like Trenton, and for instance, adding efficiencies and proper insulation and rewiring and using the building stock that's there and the embodied energy that's already in some of these buildings rather than sending them to landfills and maintaining the characters and look of towns, I think is consequential. Not taking away from new construction, but taking some of those codes and implementing in what's existing structure and people not being displaced but being able to keep neighborhoods together. So I worked for 9 years to try to get that
Well,
through and finally
they're
was
not
signed
mutually
by the
exclusive.
governor. No, but you know, I don't, having grown up in a town where the entire town was torn down and lives and businesses, small businesses disrupted because of urban renewal, it was going to be new, it was going to be better, and the town never came back because of that. But regardless, I just want to make a comment. I'm voting for acceptance of this report. One of the things I don't think, maybe it was said and it was glossed over, but I just want to emphasize that the report estimated that the annual benefit of reduced greenhouse gas emissions is approximately $1.75 billion per year by 2030. And that was computed using EPA's social cost of carbon. Any holes that are in the report, that's a learning experience. Where do we fill those holes? I can think of one thing in Bob brought to light earlier was that where New Jersey is a leader. We're a leader in the EV program and been involved with NAREC, the national organization, showing them how you can study and lead to finding a more equitable distribution of electric vehicles. We have a draft of a report. NAREC has just sent me the draft of their report. I'm like, ours is so much better. Why don't you just use ours? But something we can combine together. But that brings up everyone should have equal access to these and I said this repeatedly at many meetings, incentives should be that pushover to get over the hump so everyone can participate rather than, well, I qualify so I want it. And this is something we're working on, and I think it's across all departments, so I'm going to vote to accept this report.
I'd just like to make comment. You mentioned urban renewal, and at the time, as you will recall, because you're not as old as me, right?
Not quite.
Okay. It was an attempt to revitalize our urban areas. And some of these programs were successful and others weren't. In my mind, the important thing was an attempt was made to improve people's lives. Did it fall short? I'll be the first to say yes. But at least there was an attempt to try to help people. So, and that's kind of how I look at things too. So, any other comments? Let's have roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
No.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Ferlisa?
Yes. Thank you, Ben. We have one more item on the agenda. Jackie Hardy, here you are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
President, Commissioner.
Were you locked out?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't, okay.
Can you hear me?
I can. I thought I saw that blue suit somewhere, so maybe I was dreaming about blue suits, I don't know. You're on.
Thank you. Staff is proposing to readopt with substantial changes the board's existing rules contained within the New Jersey Administrative Code, NJAC 14:1, etc., Rules of Practice. These rules govern practice and procedure before the board, which includes all pleadings, petitions, and filings, fees and charges, and appearances and motion practice in both contested and uncontested cases. The rules also cover confidentiality issues that arise pursuant to the Open Public Records Act. Pursuant to NJSA 52:14B-5.1b, the rules at NJAC 14:1 will expire on August 19, 2022. NJAC 14:1 is necessary and appropriate, and that the rules will help ensure that New Jersey utility customers will receive safe, adequate, and proper service at reasonable rates. On February 1st, 2022, Council's office held a stakeholder meeting. The purpose of the meeting was to fully address possible amendments to the chapter, any issues, and their effect on the stakeholders. After the stakeholder meeting, the board collected comments from the stakeholder community for a period of 30 days through March 3rd, 2022. The governor's office has reviewed and approved the proposed readoption. Staff recommends that the board approve the proposed readoption of this chapter with substantial and technical changes for submission to the New Jersey Office of Administrative Law and publication in the New Jersey Register.
I'll move it.
Second.
Questions, comments for Jackie?
I have,
Yes.
as I indicated, I have a comment. First of all, Jackie, there was a famous Yankee picture, Sparky Lyle. They used to call him the fireman because he was so good. Putting out those fires at the end of games, and you are our fireman because you seem to get these rules on deadline, have to deal with. So God bless.
Poor thing.
Thank you. My only comment is, and I will be voting for this. This board, I think it's been going on 7 or 8 years, has dealt with this consolidated tax adjustment. Back and forth, on second appeal, the rate council, we, for some reason, are not fighting this. But I just want to make sure that we take a look at this as it's published and fine-tune the language if we can. Because one of the things that I asked in the briefing, because I had not seen the rule by the time I had the briefing, was that we maintain the board's flexibility and its position in decision-making. And one of the things is a provision there that says that we shall give 100% of the consolidated tax adjustment to the customer. There may be circumstances where that doesn't work in the equation. And I want staff to consider fine-tuning that language to a may. And the reason I'm asking this is because we're the only state that uses a consolidated tax adjustment. All the others have gotten rid of it. And I can read from this second appeal, the appellate decision. It says, changes in federal tax laws allow unregulated utility holding companies to file one consolidated federal income tax return. And New Jersey has permitted the practice, and has applied the CTA to share realized tax benefits with ratepayers. It goes on to talk about, and this is quoted in the partially quoted in the memo we had. The board has applied a CTA in utility rate cases for several decades, and our courts have confirmed that the board has, quote, the power and the function to take into consideration the tax savings flowing from the filing of the consolidated return and determining what portion of the consolidated tax reasonably attributed to the utility. And this was in the Amber Water Company case. So I just, that was the only thing, just take a closer look. I don't want it to just give up the board's authority.
Yeah, I also wanted to make a comment on that and agree that we should, take a look at that. And we are going to be giving comments, correct? This is going out for comments, and I hope that, interested parties will make their comments known. As we've, Commissioner Holden mentioned, this has been going on for a very long time. We are the only state that still is clinging to this, and I know it does when we get into negotiations and stipulations, and to the extent there are parties that have ideas or suggestions on how this could be better calculated, what the process should be,
Or eliminated.
or eliminated. I hope. Okay, you can say it. That this is an opportunity to come forth and have us put it to bed. So, I would urge all those interested to, make those thoughts and comments known.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
On the motion to approve staff's recommendation, Commissioner Holden?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
President Deliso?
Yes. Thank you, Jackie. This has been the longest meeting we've had in a long time, and I want to thank you all for your cooperation and endurance. Those of us who have been around a long time, is Scott still here? Stacy's still here, Carol's here. This is a short meeting in comparison to some that we had back in Newark, and so on. So 2.5 hours is not bad, but thank you.
No, good. It's good. Well done.
Anyway, for your cooperation and for the amount of work you put into preparing for this meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.